AllBall TV.
They scared, but I'm not.
They don't like comentario.
Y suscribe.
Y'all know what this is.
Knicks Rehab.
I seen some things on the internets. The first thing I saw posted today was Giannis and the Raptors have reportedly have had mutual interest. And of course, that's interesting to me because he knows his brand is built on Mr. Competitor. He's the one that said I don't have to jump from team to team. He was kind of bragging about winning without a super team before. He did that. You did that, Big G. So I think going to Toronto makes sense for him, and just, or at least using the Toronto Raptors as trade bait and leverage against for any team that Milwaukee gets to trade with or trading against, or the preference for Milwaukee. I think you have to do that first. Establish a market, as they say, as the adults say, and why not? Giannis Antetokounmpo. I still think it's far-fetched for him to come to New York. Then you see a lot of stuff with Giannis and Knicks on Twitter. Look at the trade offers they have though. Like this is us just going crazy. Nah, we're not getting Giannis, Darlene. We're just being a bunch of bochincheros right now. New York would receive Giannis. Milwaukee would receive Cat, Tyler Kolek, Washington's 2026 first-round pick, and 2 first-round pick swaps. So now we drop 2 roster spots and get nothing in return. So remember, you just traded away, because the whole thing is based off of losing iHeart, right? So because you lost iHeart, you were willing to trade initially iHeart, Randall, and Mitchell Robinson. Then Minnesota rejected it. So you came back and said, you know what? Here, take Randall and Dante. So you lost 3 roster spots, got Mikal Bridges, and then you got Mikal Bridges and got Cat, while losing Randall, Dante, and iHeart, who were all key members of last year's team. So you lost 1 guy. You got 2, but you lost 1 main rotation dude. Then if you make this trade, and Kolek is not in the rotation, but you have to replace him with somebody, and then you lose a 2026 first-round pick, protected first-round pick from Washington, 2 first-round pick swaps. I mean, it sounds decent, actually. The more I'm yapping out loud, does it sound that bad? But everybody's going to be more enticing. Pressures will probably go to Philly. Philly's the team I'm most scared of. Because no matter what we offer, Philly could offer anything. Look how much talent they have. We talked about it briefly yesterday. AllBall, Flea, and myself. They could trade Paul George with the draft pick. They could trade Embiid with the draft pick. You could offer the draft pick with either Quentin Grimes, the rookie kid from last year, who was really good. King's Speech was going on. So there's a lot in terms of just trading. Philly is obviously someone that could make an offer that's great. San Antonio. And of course, it's, to me, the 2 teams that offer the most is Philly and Oklahoma City. OKC, even being a championship team, they're doing some Lakers shit. They're doing some early 80s Lakers shit where you have a championship team and then you still have a draft pick to get James Worthy. I don't know how they finagled that. Everything seems set up, by the way. I don't believe nobody. I don't believe no damn David Stern. But I don't even know who the commissioner was before David Stern, but it's entertainment, man. You don't leave Los Angeles without the right team. They were a premier team in the 60s and 70s because of Karimo. But I digress. I'm yapping now. Speaking of Los Angeles, what a great segue. That should be happening on by accident, by the way. A lot of segues. Sometimes you find yourself looking for a segue, and then AllBall and Flea, they fuck up a lot of my segues. That's an inner secret. I'll be like, hey, speaking of Los Angeles, be like, yeah, man, the LA food is trash. I'm like, okay, hold on, let me segue the topic, man. But usually you build up chemistry, and then it builds up. But speaking of Los Angeles, the Drizzle himself, Shaquille O'Neal. He had something to say about Giannis moving on from Milwaukee. You know, being that Shaq's been on 25,000 teams. Yeah, that guy who's been swept in the first round more than anybody else that known to mankind at that size. Yeah, that guy. He got something to say to Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee. If you had advice,
nobody says his name like I do, by the way. They have no sauce, no flourish, no spice. Greek food is decent, man. Antetokounmpo.
If you could give him, if you could bend his ear a little bit, what would you tell him as he's approaching sort of maybe a cross?
Look, see, Antetokounmpo.
Close in his career.
I would tell him they're probably throwing in his face bigger market. Doesn't matter. Social media is the market now. You know, Giannis has made a name for himself on social media. Like, you go to LA, that's 50% of your contract goes to Texas. More pressure and more stress. Being that he's in the control of that ship, he should go upstairs and be like, I want to see all the free agents. I want all the phone numbers. I want to talk to them. He should bring people to him. You know, when I was coming up, it was small market. You're too small. You probably need to go to a big market. I took advantage of that. But now every market is the same. Nobody cares what city you're in anymore. This ain't the 90s.
That's Antetokounmpo.
Antetokounmpo. That's a horrible way to say Antetokounmpo. But that was Shaq. He was saying how Giannis is staying in Milwaukee. That social media is now the new media. You don't have to go to a big market, which I understand what he's saying. I definitely understand what he's saying. By the way, that was Shaq on with the good word from Goodwill from Yahoo Sports. I gotta tag them in this because I don't want to get my stuff taken down, man. I want y'all to see this in totality. Hopefully, me tagging them and adding their page, they don't get no smoke from us. But I did find it ironic that Shaq would say this. It's not like back in his day. He started off in Orlando, went to LA, but he ended up right back in Florida. He got traded to Miami. What is he talking about? He got traded to Cleveland. Played in Boston. He went to Phoenix. What is he talking about back in his day? That's number one. Number two, the Kobe Shaq dynamic was always interesting. I always make fun of Shaq, Barkley, and for making fun of Kevin Durant. You guys were team hoppers, and yeah, you might have driven the bus or whatever it is, but you still were doing what these guys are attempting to do. They might not have the leadership skills that you guys did. They might not have the competitive spirit that they did, because that's what the old school guys have over the new school guys, is a competitive spirit. But Shaq he wasn't as competitive as Giannis. He wasn't as competitive as Giannis. I have a theory about Shaq, like Allen Iverson, Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, maybe LeBron. Yeah, LeBron is in that category. Kobe to a certain extent, right? Those guys versus the Patrick Ewings of the world, maybe Giannis, but definitely like a Patrick Ewing, Tim Duncan. There's certain guys that they couldn't even enjoy their celebrity, or when they stepped outside, their celebrity was so intense that they would shut shit down, and it felt almost like just the fame was a drug, because everybody around you was just showing you so much love that it became intoxicating. So for someone like Shaq to be in LA, it was even that much more. And maybe that's what he's trying to say to Giannis, like, bro, you go to LA, it's way more distracting. Just stay in Milwaukee and do what you've been doing. Because look where it drove Shaq into a rivalry with his own teammate. They try to downplay it after they were both retired. I don't believe that shit at all whatsoever. Y'all were heated. You guys were battling to be 1A, 1B, whatever. Kobe ends up staying, of course, pushing Shaq out, giving him an ultimatum. I won't say the city started to turn on him, but Kobe became a villain. He was kind of turning on to being a heel because he was promoted as the fake Michael Jordan so much that or the next Michael Jordan. I got to be respectful. Please don't jump on here and curse me out. But it was just already teetering. And then once the thing happened with Shaq, he kind of snitched on him. And then, of course, he caught the case. He became a villain. And then the whole LA, I don't say they turned on him. He probably gained more respect because he grinded it out. But even he asked for a trade. He gave the Lakers another ultimatum. Was like, either trade me or I don't want to be here no more. Just make us better. So those kind of personalities in LA, look at LeBron. They understand the value and the equity that they have in viewership and the attention of the game, being a superstar in basketball. Those guys, even though Kobe wasn't born here, he was with Nike. He started to become more familiar with the culture here. Yeah, he played in Philly, lived in Philly for a while. But I think all that thing plays a factor when going to a big city, a big market. There's a lot to it. I'm pretty sure, Giannis has a bunch of handlers, but it's different playing in New York. And I think Shaq is telling him, like, yo, just chill. There's no need to go to New York. Even though what I think he's wrong at is that social media could be the new media. It is the ultimate media. All right, cool. But all social media was the new York. That's why I always tell, shout out to Dom, man, Dom Dropper, because he's always like, yo, why is everybody always arguing over? I'm like, yo, bro, people on social media, I'm not going back and forth with them. I don't know those people. I do go back and forth here and there, but for the most part, I'm not taking it personal, because in New York, that's how we talk. So they took the whole melting pot of New York, and now it's on social media. It's not like, Silicon Valley said, we're going to take the New York style and put it on Twitter. Not that, but this is what you get when you have 8 million people in one city. If it's that one, I think it's probably like 10, 12 million. And social media has billions of people on there. You have all these thoughts that are merging, and you have all these little fraternities of like-mindedness, and you're going to have a bunch of debates. So with that tool, Shaq is saying you don't need to be in New York, but that's an absolute lie, because there's still nothing like New York. All markets are not the same. New York is, at some points, the most winning franchise, the most valuable franchise in basketball. Knicks value 7.5. They're currently the second most highest valued franchise in the NBA, right? Right behind Golden State, right above the Lakers and the Celtics. And we're talking about the last 25 years. Who has won championship? The Warriors, the Lakers, and the Celtics. You can't tell me that a part of this 7.5 billion, Giannis wants no part of. Right? Like a part of that 7.5 billion, he wants in on that. As a matter of fact, you have a total of what? Damn near 9, let's say 8, 17, 24, $30 billion right here with the top 4 teams. I can't imagine that Giannis isn't sitting down with his team and he's like, yo, the NBA generates about, I think, $10, $12 billion a year. These teams are valued at, $30 billion. Is it possible for me to increase the value of these teams and get some equity on it? And I think he can, because there is a clause for these players to actually participate in the equity of these teams. That's the crazy part. NBA collective bargaining agreement notes on player investment, draft, and combine changes. The NBA's new collective bargaining agreement has finally been released. So NBA players will now be able to take their small slice of skyrocketing franchise valuations that have turned NBA teams into multi-billion-dollar entities, while a player still cannot have a direct ownership stake in an NBA team or any company that owns a stake in the team. The National Basketball Association can now invest in an investment fund approved by the NBA to buy a passive minority share in an NBA team. That investment may not be more than 5% of the money raised for that fund. So while a player still cannot have a direct ownership stake, the National Basketball Players Association can now invest in an investment fund. Okay, as of right now, however, this process is still in the early stages. The union, I thought there was another one with 10%. The player cannot buy more than a 4% stake. Also, you have the WNBA teams. NBA players may also own less than 1% of any publicly traded securities in a company that directly or indirectly owns an NBA team, down from 5% in the CBA in the 2017 CBA. Because this was all a counter to like the Saudi money coming in from Saudi Arabia. They don't want the Saudis to come in and take over the NBA teams. And which is, I don't know if it's gonna be a mistake, but we've seen rumors of Rich Paul and LeBron trying to make their own team. Maverick Carter advising $5 billion effort to start new basketball league. All right. Maverick Carter, LeBron James' business manager, has been enlisted as an advisor by a group of investors seeking to raise $5 billion to form an international basketball league that will serve as a rival to the NBA. That group, which includes private equity funds, is looking to form a league consisting of 6 men's teams and 6 women's teams. Though Carter, who has served as a producer on more than one of James' TV and movie projects, is closely tied to the Los Angeles Lakers star, the sources told ESPN that James is not involved in the efforts with this new league. And we don't believe none of that shit. Bloomberg reported that the investment group might try to tap private equity and sovereign wealth funds to raise the $5 billion it is seeking. Currently, private equity funds are limited to a 20% stake in NBA teams. Adam Silver specifically talked about the Saudi money. Adam Silver said that no Saudi-backed fund has tried to invest in an NBA team. We allow funds to invest in teams, but not control teams, not to have influence over teams. So to own an NBA team, there has to be an individual with a certain percent of the team to control it. When the Saudis invest in sports, it gets outsized attention. Now, I don't want to complain about that because we want to get outsized attention. On the other hand, somebody could go down the list there. There are investors in some of our largest American corporations. Some of the most well-known brands have investments from them. And I also think it's a two-edged sword. I hear the comments in sports washing. On the other hand, you're talking about it. Others are talking about it. In the same way the World Cup, the Soccer World Cup brought enormous attention to Qatar. I think people learn about these countries, learn about what's happening in the world in ways they otherwise wouldn't. So I think the media does its job. But now, talking specifically about the NBA, we're such a global sport. I think people are a little too dismissive these days about the benefits that come from the commonality around sports. Yeah. So now you think, hey, what the hell I got to do with Giannis? Vegas is up for grabs. Having another league involved to compete. These players, remember, LeBron's about to retire. There was rumored to be his last season. That's a couple of rumblings about that. If that's the case, he's gonna have to start to look for his next endeavor. That's part of the reason why you go to the Lakers, because it's the most visible franchise that we have. And with the Knicks, again, going back to Shaq's point, to say that every market is the same is impossible. New York City media is different. We've seen what happened with Brunson. Brunson, yes, was the underdog story, but he comes here and now he's an MVP candidate. Yeah, he has his right team, the right family around him. But why wouldn't Giannis see that and want to go join that? Like, yo, how can I get down with the CAA, man? How can I get down with this? Everything you talk about, everything being corporate and everything being related to each other and just having all these groups and factions in terms of the money and all that. I think it would behoove Giannis Antetokounmpo to come join us, man. Come join Death Row. Also, if he's going to come to New York, don't do it the mellow way. I see you in the comments, Flea. I'm going to get to a different point now. Don't do it the mellow way. Come join us the same way Brunson did. Come join us the same way Josh Hart did on a good trade, not a bad trade, a good one. Amari Stoudemire, come sign over to Death Row, man. We would rather see Giannis with Cat and OG and a couple of other pieces instead of just trading Cat and rebuilding all over again. Giannis would have been a great addition to this. That's the last thing I'm going to say about that. The way you come to New York is if you come here, I know King Speech. I know it got to be a trade, but I'm talking about when you trade yourself in that way and you say, you know what, I'm going to gut the whole foundation of this team, it becomes more pressurized, and you got out of Milwaukee to win. So why would you want to go to another place and make it less easier to compete? It makes no sense. Brunson is here, yeah, but we saw his flaws exposed these playoffs. Same thing with Karl Anthony Towns. And you have to have defensive guys in front of Giannis so he can do his job. Because we're gonna get on Cat, but trust me, Flea will start to dissect Giannis if he's here watching him night to night and going, "Oh, that's what Fabian's talking about. Oh, Giannis be on skates. Oh, he's just a weak side Marcus Camby." Correct. That's all. I have some notes here. I'm sorry, guys. The Knicks for the most valuable fan. New York Knicks fan. Corner. Right. Why wouldn't Giannis want to come here either? 2. Why wouldn't Giannis want to come here if you see a bunch of Karl Anthony Towns jerseys in Orlando, Miami, Charlotte, Boston, Indiana, Philly? They had to put a quota on Knicks ticket sales in Indiana these playoffs because they were scared to death that we were going to come in there and invade. You think Giannis doesn't want to see that? Shaq, shut the hell up. Nobody cares about your bummage. Most of your advice is straight garbage. Just because you use social media like a chirping whore does not mean Giannis has to do that. The Greeky Freaky has his own thing to do, man. Leave us the hell alone. AllBall TV. They scared, but I'm not. They don't like comentario.
Y suscribe.